So, hello, good afternoon. Welcome to this webinar on the benefits of an extended project qualification. My name is Sam Wenman, and I'm from the Winding Participation Outreach Office, where I'm the Winding Participation Outreach Programs Manager here at the University of Bath. Let's start with a little bit about myself. I was a teacher, a secondary school teacher, a history teacher, for quite some time before coming to this role, and I was also a deputy head of sixth form in the school that I work for. So my first kind of sort of understanding of the EPQ was at that time where I didn't have a direct connection, but worked closely with colleagues who ran this sort of extended project qualification in my school. And at that time, it was very much sort of, in our school anyway, it was very much for the gifted and talented students as a bit of an added extra, something slightly different from doing more A-levels. And it wasn't really very popular, I have to admit, at that time. I think doing more A-levels was very much the norm, certainly for those sort of gifted and talented students. I then came across EPQ really in my current role. So at the moment I run a team of outreach officers. We work specifically with students from underrepresented backgrounds, and we work quite a lot in the local area because a lot of the work we do is kind of sustained work with schools through all years of the student sort of life cycle. And the EPQ is becoming increasingly popular. It's something I'm going to be talking about in today's webinar. And we're developing various sort of forms of support for schools because of the value that we hold it within this institution, the University of Bath, and largely because of the value that a lot of other higher education institutions hold it as well. I'm not an EPQ expert in the sense of the delivery of the EPQ, but hopefully today I can give you a bit of a sense of why we value it, why employers value it, and a bit of background. So, moving on, this is what I would like to cover in today's webinar. A bit of a brief history of the EPQ and its popularity, thinking about why it's being taken up both by students but also why we as higher education institutions are encouraging it, and thinking about those benefits in different ways, so A-level studies, applications to higher education and university, its preparation for transition and the sort of the value in that regards. Employment briefly, again, not necessarily my area of expertise, but certainly something that's come out with the discussions I have with people and the colleagues I work with. And finally, a little bit about what EPQ support we offer here at the University of Bath or other universities if they're local to you. So, starting off with the kind of context of the EPQ. Bear with me a minute. I think recent years have seen quite certainly an implicit, if not sometimes explicit, debate about the relative importance of knowledge and skills in the curriculum. I think many people now are starting to argue the need for sort of inculcating more sort of skills development in young people. Really to prepare them for a very fast changing world of work and the changing nature of higher education. And I think it's becoming more the norm that this isn't just about vocational or technical training, nor is it about sort of hard skills such as literacy, numeracy, IT, those kinds of skills. What is important for the whole learner is very much the soft skills as well. So sort of creativity, problem solving, initiative, time management, all absolutely essential for success as a learner throughout the life cycle. And I think these are increasingly considered vital for students, and for individuals as well as for sort of society as a whole. That's why I think HEIs, higher education institutions, and employers are really sort of pushing this point of view, and we see this rise in popularity. And looking there at some of the statistics on that slide, it was introduced by AQA in 2007. It was just a pilot really as part of their diploma, a level 3 diploma, and really was an add-on as something for skills development. But looking purely at those numbers, so AQA 870 entries in 2008, going up to really 27,674 last year, and they have about sort of the lion's share of the market. They have about 70% of the market, but including the rest, we're looking at 40,013 entries for EPQ last year, and that's an absolute incredible difference over a 10-year period. So this popularity, I think, it's interesting. It's not just because there's obviously lots of changes to the A-level provision. There's changes to university applications and so forth have seen this, but I think there's also something about the nature of the EPQ itself and its attractiveness for individuals and students, and its success really as a vehicle for something different in regards to learning. Also interesting, I think, to point out that nationally 63% of EPQ entries come from over about 1,300 school sixth forms, so largely it's based in school sixth forms. 26% of entries are coming from around about 182 colleges, with the sort of sixth form colleges accounting for the vast majority of those. And around about 352 private fee charging schools account for around about 11% of entries. So it does seem to be something that is popular across the board, but very much so with sort of state schools and colleges. However, this does mean that still 44% of all sixth forms don't offer EPQ, and I think that's something we as a university are hoping to address. And again, as a widening participation office, is something we're trying to encourage many schools to try and take up because of the benefits that we're going to be exploring. So, starting off with kind of the benefits for A-level, I'm sure I don't know exactly who my audience is today, but if you are teachers familiar with the EPQ, you'll be well versed in its benefits as a learning vehicle, and how it can be, how the skills of an EPQ will benefit students at A-level. The fact that the skills are sort of embedded, that those skills are nurtured and engendered through the extended project qualification. I think it's this skills background that have led to it becoming increasingly popular across all sort of stakeholders, whether that be students, colleges, employers, or higher education institutions, because they are skills that, as we were saying earlier, are sort of preparing people for learning and for society and work of the 21st century. And I think this popularity really demonstrates, as a saying, that it's not just the skills are useful for the EPQ, but useful for the whole learner. I'll have a look a bit in a minute at the relationship between the impact of those who are doing EPQs and their attainment levels in A-level. But first of all, I also want to think about other areas of development of the whole learner that I think are valued beyond just the skills. I think it's fair to say that, on top of these skills, freedom that comes from choosing an individual topic that they're allowed to do, and the opportunity to really explore in depth and tailor the style of learning and research that they do. And for the development of an academic curiosity, which, at a really vital time in their student life cycle. Sometimes this can be when some students are getting a little bit fed up with quite a rigid curricula. But certainly it's important at that point, really, when students are really thinking about their futures, they've got a year and a half maybe still of study before going into further study or employment. And that sort of renewal of academic inspiration and curiosity is really, really vital. And I think it could be argued is having a real positive impact on their other studies. The EPQ also allows students to gain, within reason, some expert knowledge on a topic, and this in itself can build further confidence in themselves as a learner and a renewed academic interest. And I think this is something that higher education institutions definitely polled in very positive regard. We like students to have a real in-depth knowledge in certain, of certain areas, and that's what they're going to be developing when they come to university. So to get that sort of ball rolling is something I think which is important for us. And moving on, I think thinking about that relationship to attainment, I'm taking this from a study recently done by AQA, so I've got the references there at the bottom of the slide. So they've done some research on how the extended project does the extended project qualification enhance students' GCSE A-level performance. And I've sort of highlighted the key summary of those. I mean, this can all be found online quite easily. And basically what they found is that it does have a positive, those students who are taking an EPQ tend to perform well in their A-levels and outperform those who aren't doing an EPQ, basically put. And this is when they're taking prior attainment into account. And they found that this is true for basically all subjects, except for maths, funny enough, where there was no obvious benefit of those students doing an EPQ. They gave the example there of biology, so quite a significant, 5.62% more EPQ students achieving a grade A or better than their non-EPQ peers. And again, that's in the research, there's a lot more by subject, and I'll touch a bit more on that in just a second. Another thing was with the odds of getting an A star or a B grade in your A levels. So there was a correlation between those doing an EPQ and those getting an A star or B, and effectively, put simply, the odds of being awarded A star to B at A level, as it says, they're increased by 29%. So quite significant changes. And one of the conference I went to where I discovered this piece of research was we very much discussed the links between the sort of thought that if someone's doing an EPQ, they're probably a more proactive student and they're more likely to do well. And some of the research that they were saying, and we'll touch again on this in a minute, saying that isn't necessarily the case, and that's certainly came out of the statistics. One thing they also found as well, looking at it in this sort of manner, was that for every unit increase of EPQ grade, so if a student's going from, say, a C to a B or a B to an A, for every increase of grade, they are 7% more likely to be awarded a grade A star or B at A level. So there's a correlation between sort of success and, I guess, at EPQ, and also that does come down closer. We'll see some motivational changes. But again, that's what we were saying about that academic curiosity and that academic interest being re-stimulated and renewed at that time. So I think there is definitely something in there, and it is something that's being recognised by universities. They also found that this is an interesting thing, the differences across subjects and subject groupings. So, bear with me while I just grab my notes. They basically found that the sort of English, arts, and business and humanities were generally doing better. People in those sort of subjects and subject groupings were doing better than science and maths and technology. And I think this is where they started questioning this idea that the sort of the EPQ effect being a proxy for greater motivation demonstrated by EPQ centres or students wasn't necessarily true, because if that were the case, you'd likely see it across all subjects. So perhaps the actual reality is a little bit more nuanced than that. It is worth pointing out that there was no change with maths, and also no, or the change with languages was kind of negligible. But other than that, there was clear sort of correlation between good EPQ, or EPQ, and higher levels of attainment in A levels. So I think this is something, that universities are taking on board, and that we are, basically feeling is important. And so moving on, I guess, to sort of applications. There was definitely a number of benefits for taking an EPQ at with regards to applying to university. University admissions are highly competitive, and especially at high tariff universities, where courses are generally very much oversubscribed. So it's increasingly important for students to be able to find ways to stand out. Beyond the standard level 3 offer of A-levels, BTECs, IBs, etc., universities are looking for evidence really of what makes the student stand out, and ultimately we're looking for what's going to make a good student, what's going to make a successful student, what's going to make somebody, or what demonstrates that somebody is actually going to be successful when they come to us and enjoy being with us. And I think ultimately, we're looking for people who are passionate about their subjects, that they demonstrate a responsibility to their own learning, that they'll be able to overcome the challenges that they're going to face in higher education, or at least approach those challenges in a creative way, and ultimately that they're going to sort of stick to their course and do their best. And I think increasingly higher education institutions see the EPQ, or the taking of an EPQ, and hopefully doing well at it, as evidence of this. And as a result, to varying degrees, universities are recognising this within their admissions process, and sometimes within the conditions of their offers. The skills that are developed within the EPQ are clearly those that are going to benefit with regards to transition to university. They demonstrate that preparedness, I think, to be able to come onto our courses and immediately start sort of engaging in research, not feeling out of place if they're asked to go off to the library and do research, that they know how to actually work with somebody else, or to find the resources they need, that they've got the critical mind to look at resources in that way, or perhaps to also engage in certain specific skills for that subject. So I think the fact that they have already, through the EPQ, developed and engaged in skills that they will be employing at an undergraduate level is something that we're looking for. And I think, as well as that, the increased knowledge of the subject gives them a good grounding for their course, and both sort of the effort really involved in successfully completing the EPQ. I mean, that extra effort on top of the A-levels, as well as the choice of subject, are kind of good indicators of someone's responsibility towards their learning. So, because they're obviously going out and demonstrating that they are keen to develop new skills, they're keen to add to what they already have in their core level 3 courses, and depending on what they do, it sort of demonstrates a passion for learning, and perhaps even through a specific subject. So I think, if somebody has really got something in mind, it's quite good to try and pursue that topic, maybe through the EPQ. I think because of the skills element, universities are interested in all topics, and it doesn't have to necessarily follow that somebody needs to do a topic in an area or a course that they're interested in going on to. I think they're very highly valued regardless. But again, it might, if somebody has got a very clear sort of idea of their pathway, or an area of an interest, then I think that's a really good thing to pursue, and it can come out later when the point of application through personal statements and interviews and things like that can be very handy too. I think ultimately, the EPQ is a valuable proof of a student's capacity for independent learning. It demonstrates a passion for their subject, and that they really want to study at a kind of higher level. It basically shows us they are serious, and allows the student to produce a piece of work which is individual. And I think that can often say something very unique about that person and their potential, and is often something that will be explored. So we really want to hear about those things, and it's really vital that they're sort of put as part of the application process. So the high regard the sort of higher education institutions have for the EPQ is definitely expressed through the admissions context. And you'll basically see this in a couple of forms. In one form, you'll see universities increasingly talking about the EPQ as being important to their decision-making process, and evidencing clearly evidencing skills that they value, and therefore it should be noted, and they will be taken as a point of consideration when they're thinking about offers. I put these two quotes up here from admissions pages from various universities, so the University of Birmingham, and it just clearly in bold there you can see these, this statement of what I've just been saying. They value the EPQ, they encourage them to mention it. And in the Cambridge one there, it even points out that this sort of thing may form the basis of an interview. So one thing is about that decision-making process. If you've got two students with the same sort of level 3 background, grade and prediction, then what is it that can make people stand out? And it's that extracurricular stuff. But yet they're clearly saying that EPQ is something that they would look for. And I think, for most universities now, the EPQ can have an impact on this decision making. And that doesn't mean to say that they're going to get an alternative offer or the conditions offer will be different, but it might just simply make the difference when they're being selected for an interview or when they're being given an offer, to make a difference between those that are going to get an offer and those that won't. I've got another one here from Oxford that says much the same thing. Bear with me a second. They say that where applicants have undertaken the extended project qualification, this will not be a condition of the offer, but the university recognises that the EPQ will provide an applicant with the opportunity to develop research and academic skills relevant for study at Oxford. Candidates are encouraged to draw upon relevant EPQ experience when writing their personal statement. So once again, very explicitly saying that they value it because of its transitional and because of the transitional skills involved, but also to make it very, very explicit. There are then universities who go that little bit further. Excuse me. I think there's a growing number of universities that recognise the EPQ in some way within the conditions of their offer, including us here at the University of Bath. This may be in the form of a conditional offer based on tariff points. So some universities it's just the total number of tariff points, and an EPQ would be within that. EPQs currently take a maximum of 70 UCAS points, which is a little bit more than an AS level around 60 UCAS points. So it's some universities, not ourselves, but some universities who just give a tariff point offer will include that, and so it's of value there. Others, like ourselves, will actually perhaps give an alternative offer for many of their courses, all but small, like literally 2 or 3 of our courses, most of them through maths-based courses that offer where we kind of require step courses. But beyond that, most of our courses will give an alternative offer for the EPQ. So, and as it says there, so University of Bristol, University of Southampton are exactly the same. And again, Southampton there alluding to why they're doing that. Their confidence in the EPQ is an excellent preparation for the kinds of independent study. So again, it's all about those skills-based elements giving us confidence in them as a student. Here's the one from the University of Bath. So again, it's about preparation, and they support the transition to our level of study. So we will offer an alternative offer. If you get an offer from the University of Bath, it might be, say, 3 A's at A level, or if you have an A grade in the EPQ, it will be 2 A's and a B at A level. So moving on, I think well, it kind of goes without saying really about the benefits for transition based on everything that we've just been saying, and I've put them there, but ultimately, these quotes and everything, it's quite clear that the main value of the EPQ to us is the fact that it prepares students for our style of teaching and learning, and it allows these other elements of confidence, curiosity, and knowledge to be developed, which are things that we are hoping students sort of acquire prior to coming to university, and then build on that once they're here. It's worth pointing out that universities are currently kind of graded through a new thing called the Teaching Excellence Framework, and universities basically being measured on a number of metrics, and one of those is actually the dropout levels and what number of students can continue through, as well as those that continue through to employment and those or further study, as well as sort of specifically sort of highly skilled employment. So ultimately, it's within our sort of best interest really to be looking for students who are prepared, who are going to hit the ground running once they're here. And I think that's another key reason why we're starting to see the EPQ and its value. And I say we, meaning the higher education sector as a whole, for that preparedness, basically. And I think this is, going back to applications, I can't stress enough how important it is for students to really put the fact that they've done the EPQ, but really talk about the skills that they've learned and how they've developed as a learner, and how this is going to set them up for their time at university. I get many quotes from students who, here at the university, who talk about their EPQs, ones that we work with as our students ambassadors, talking about how well it set them up. And feedback from students who we've worked with on our outreach programs, who've then gone off and really also talked about how well the sort of project work has helped them. I think there's you can never sort of reduce how important it is. Once these students, they come here, and all of a sudden it's a new style of learning, and if that's familiar and they feel that they can manage, that is a really important step, towards ongoing success. So, in regards to employment, I think it's very much the same. I think employers value the skills. It's something to put on a CV. We're talking about personal statements, but very much talking it's an extra qualification. So they like to look at specific qualifications. It does demonstrate a new skill set, but it's going to be separate from those core sort of level 3 courses. And again, if people have a particular career in mind, I think it's worth them thinking about the topic creatively to perhaps sort of pursue a topic that might be related to that area of employment, because it demonstrates the passion. And I think as well, it's worth them students thinking about what knowledge they'll need once they start in that employment, and is there something they can do around that in terms of gaining knowledge that will actually again sort of get their foot in the door, or put them one step ahead with regards to that. And I do think there are lots of key transferable skills that are coming out, that are going to come out, whether it be research or working with numbers, or whether it be working with other people, because you can do things in a group, or because it's not just a case of all EPQs. You have to write up a final thing, a report. Some you can make something, you can do a performance, and so all of these are areas of skills development that employers might be looking for, that could be transferable. But I think ultimately it sort of can prove to employers that somebody is motivated, again, in the same way we're looking for people responsible for their own learning. And I think it really the same way that we're looking at, I think employers do value it very highly. So just finally, I put here a couple of links. I understand I can't press on them very easily and show you what's there. So I am just going to stick with having the links there. Written resources. I put some written resources there from the University of Birmingham, just because I happen to know that they have some written resources available for teachers and students. But to be honest, if you were to just do a quick search of a number of university sites, you would be able to get through to their written resources. And many, if you put EPQ in their search engines, many you'll find that are offering these kinds of things. We've gone a slightly different route here at the University of Bath. Last year we worked closely with our academic skills. These are the people that support students once they're here at university in regards to academic skills. And we work with them to put together a MOOC, a massive open online course on FutureLearn. And I've put the link there that will take you through to our web pages where you can see a little video about the MOOC. I mean, essentially, it breaks down. It's a course, a free online course that students can access, and it takes you through the research steps and guides you through the process of doing an EPQ. And people can dip in and out of it, start it, and go back as is relevant to their development of their EPQ as they move along. It's also worth noting that I put the outreach. I put my email there for outreach. Any university, wherever your local university is, if you're going to go on, the majority of them are now supporting EPQ in one way or another, as you can see how highly valued it is. I put my link there for anyone locally. You can go onto our web pages, our University of Bath web pages, or through to the MOOC. You can also go through to our widening participation pages, and it will tell you generally about our outreach. I'm in the process of developing more outreach activity specific to the EPQ. So I would like to develop workshops that I can take into local schools and to deliver to their EPQ students to support some of these things. So it might be in combination there with the MOOC, or seen as separate things. But we also offer, for example, trips to our library, and many universities do this. So you could either get in touch with their widening participation or outreach departments, or directly with the library if you're having no joy through the former, and to see what opportunities are available. Our library basically will, in conjunction with ourselves in widening participation, can set up a day where you bring a group of students. They can learn how to go off and find the books and research, how to record and reference. They can then, I will supply them with a student for the day, can come along and talk about their experience of EPQ, and then I often come along and talk about the benefits and the value at the point of admissions. So we can sort of design a day bespoke for a group of students, and I think many universities are doing very similar things. And often libraries then, students can then access the library or some of the resources, publicly. Universities are very much tuning into this and the benefits of this. But just a quick little plug. I am looking for so local to the University of Bath. We generally consider local anything up to an hour away, but if you feel that you can get here, this is really going out to EPQ coordinators. I'm trying to put together a little group of sort of best practice, really. Someone, so that the group can come together in a neutral space here at the University of Bath, discuss best practice. And we can also discuss ways that the university can support practice and development in schools. So if you're interested in that, please do get in contact, and my email is just there. So that is largely it. Thanks for listening, and if you have any questions or would like to